it all dressed up for you, so you could take me down. My lipstick on your lip, I like the way it sounds. You know it's different with me. We got that kind of sound. Turn it up, make it so loud. I'ma make my neighbors proud. Yeah, like I give a shot. Turn me up, baby, give me that boy. Make it gangsta, 'cause I like it real.
The board entry fee is the shipping and handling and tax. So we don't mind paying the $100 for the to Ballroom is Con Collections.
Yes.
So that is probably what will forever be my biggest contribution to Ballroom. So
we're gonna hold it there because I wanted to dive into that later on as far as like how that impacted you, navigated to the opportunities that you are in now. I'm gonna start now with Noelle, Miss Noelle.
Another archives, honey.
From the archives. Yeah, so definitely tell me a little about yourself and like why you started Noelle Archives.
Well, I started my transition in 2019. It was like 3 weeks before Pride. My best friend asked me, he was like, have you ever thought about transitioning? And I was like, why would you ask me that? I grew up in a very religious household, and I also grew up in a queer household. So I always like was aware like of myself. So yeah, I started my transition in 2019. Then I started getting like deeper into the community and started studying. I think the first time I saw someone Vogue was Vogue Evolution. Mm-hmm. And then I saw, I think it was MJ Rodriguez voguing, and then Sanaya. And then I was like, okay, I need to like learn this. So I started like skimming through like ballroom throwbacks and like everything. I started like studying. I started like teaching myself how to vogue. I was like, I need to do this. So then it was Sanaya, but then Deja came. And I was like, I want to be that. Like, I want to be the soft and comfort for this generation. So I like studied for months, and then I did a thread on Twitter, and then poof. It was important for me to make sure I knew what I was talking about, you know, because you can't come into a community like just half-assing anything, you know.
I mean, they do that,
yeah,
but you know, but I mean, that's what makes you
right.
So yeah, me too. I hate that godly so much. But yes, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, but I grew up as someone who was always like dissecting and analyzing everything, and it started with music, and then Vogue came. So yeah, like it's been a really great journey. I've been like afforded like opportunities and.
Are you about to cry?
No, I'm not about to cry.
I was about to say,
no, because like I'm thinking about like no, because I'm thinking about like all of the reasons why like I started, you know.
Right.
But yeah, like archiving is a chance to give the past a voice.
Yeah.
So it's important for me.
And I'm glad that you said that because every one of y'all like gives the past a voice, and it's like new, and it's, you know, in today's climate where they don't really care so much. I feel like about that. So I'm glad, because when I used to like dig into the old clips too, because I've been watching old clips, well, you know, old school clips, whatever, since it started putting it on YouTube, no shade, and it captivated me just the way I feel like it did for the many of y'all. And what is telling to me is that like, no shade, like I used to get like picked on for like liking that stuff, like, oh, but you trying to be old so bad, and it's just like
no thing.
It hits so different. And so I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna get into Miss Fabulous over here, Miss Nekia, $1,000 no shade runway and $1,000 performance winner. So yes, how did you come about? Because I also want to note that you actually is transitioning and growing and like blossoming in front of the community, and so you have a different experience than I feel like maybe from them too, because you kind of like stepped in already, walking the category, and so like Yeah, it was a lot of transitioning going on.
So I'm from Florida. Everybody know I'm from Florida, and
an accent. Okay.
you know, I be trying to hide the accent, but you know, I'm from Florida or whatever. Shout out to 863, shout out to 813, and shout out to Orange County. But yeah, I always was kind of like ballroom adjacent because I was always kind of like on social media. I had a YouTube channel. I was always doing something to where people in ballroom was watching me. It was just that I was never old enough to go be sneaking out my grandma's house, going all the way down to Miami to try to walk a ball, spend the night, lie about where I'm going, come back to make it church on Sunday. Like, I was not doing that. Right. When I finally did, though, decide to join Ballroom, it was with the House of Mizrahi. Andre had just moved to Texas, and Nemo Lux was my father at the time, and Kitty, I think Kitty's a Blonic now, but Kitty was my mother, and they, of course, coming in, they wanted me to do runway, but they also was like creating a space for me to Vogue, because much like everybody else, like once I discovered like old school clips, it was really a wrap for me.
Right.
And as I always say, once like I discovered the old school clips, and it gave like, I want to just study this and I just want to learn this. And then I discovered Lola, and it just gave like, okay, I need to Vogue now. Like I really want to Vogue right now. So came in and won the 1,000 for runway. And I think, as I always explain, because I was also heavily in a place of doing runway for like bookings and everything like that, I was in a space where I felt like I would let a panel of people who would never be able to like go to a casting call, don't even know what a casting call looks like, come and judge me for something that I get paid to do. Right. So I wanted to come and creatively express myself through Vogue, and it just by happenstance, you know, transitioning ended up happening as well. I've only been, I started transitioning in 2021, and yeah, it's been 3 years now. And I started transitioning like shortly before I moved to New York, but then I moved to New York probably like a month or so after. And it was, you know, dealing with all the different diasporas, people saying you're not a femme queen yet, people saying you're not ready for this, you're not ready, you know, you need a moan, you need more time. But when I finally decided that I was ready, I won my 1,000 like that first night, which was like very, very, very affirming to me.
Wait,
it was
this is you talk about the performance.
Yeah, performance.
This is at the
at OTA.
OTA, yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time walking femme queen performance, like actual femme queen performance.
Really?
I had only walked drags twice, like once in Florida and then once at the West Ball.
Yeah.
And when I walked it at the West Ball, I did not feel good walking drags performance. Like I felt okay, but I did not want to move forward walking drags performance, because at that time I already was like 3, 4, 5, 6 months on my own, bitch. And like by the time I like came back from West Ball, I had already started the injection. And you got people who are telling you like, no, you still need to bake more, you still need to wait more. So instead of walking drags performance, I would just walk open to all categories that weren't necessarily broken down that way. Like I just float under the radar, however I can like float under the radar. But once it came time for me to like actually pick and actually stand on Femme Queen performance, I won $1,000 my first night, which was like so crazy. Like I never ever thought that would have happened.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when I seen it, I gagged, because I really was just
gagged.
But in a good way though. Like no shit, because
bitch, I was in Facebook jail and I couldn't like, bitch, I was in Facebook jail and I couldn't comment on the post, but I was like,
oh, trust me, I never really tell people the story, but it was after I had won against Jasmine. I was standing over on the side. I was losing my breath. I was trying to catch my breath or whatever. And Genovia came over and she was like, congratulations. I was like, girl, don't say that. She was like, no, congratulations. Right. I was like,
because you were battling some heavy hitting femme queens.
No, like sister, like you were pulling the shit out.
Yeah, like, that's why I watched those clips. I'm like, damn, I need to channel that again. I need to like, but I want the girls to come out so it will help me channel that, you know. But yeah, like, and within everything, and within doing that, I also feel like it was very important for me to stand on that and step into myself, because until I stepped into myself and until I stood on, I'm a femme queen, this is who I am, this is who I want to represent myself, whether it's how the masses or how Ballroom perceives me to be, or not, this is who I am. The opportunities just started like flying open. Yeah.
You know, and I think, and I'm glad that you said that because again, for each and every one of you guys that I've witnessed, like y'all are really authentic, which is what I also want to highlight is that like y'all are remaining authentic in this space, and it is hard to do that, and it is harder. I'm pretty sure it's harder to do that just as femme queens, period. So. No shade. We got past the introductions. You know what you guys give. So I kind of want to know y'all opinions as far as like y'all experience dealing with butch queens in the scene because I know it's
How much time we got?
Well, bitch, if you was on time, we would have more time to think, bro. But because it's a telling experience, no shade. If you talk about a community that was started by femme queens, and then you know the butch queens took their place, and now it's like no shade. I just feel like the femme queens, I mean the butch queens, are just sucking the femininity out of the goddamn space, every nook and cranny. But
Please don't tell them that, girl. Please don't.
and it fucking sucks. No shade, because like we like these people that inspires and have been holding it down, like the Currys and all those girls, like they really held a pinnacle of like honoring the femininity within them, and like you could just sense that in the clips, I'm sure, of like what it is, because you fell in love with it, you capturing it, the essence in it, like it's something, it's a reason what that got us here. And I always say that is a difference between people who is it that for some people ballroom calls them, and then some people they find ballroom. Like, oh, excuse me, let me phrase that.
We always talk about
Yes,
that.
ballroom either finds you, and then there's people who find ballroom. But the ones who ballroom finds, like, it hits totally different. No shade. And so I kind of maybe want to rephrase that question, and I do want to understand your experience with with dealing with butch queens in the scene. But how was that reality check from, like, I guess, you know, the oohs and ahs of like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to, and then actually being and dealing with the people in the scene as femme queens.
I feel like, from my experience, because I came in as a butch queen, it was culture shock and humbling, because, like, it's not to say that I was, like, all the way up here, but I was at a position that by the time I decided to transition, it felt like I had got knocked all the way to the bottom of the totem pole when it came to like, and not just like how ballroom perceives me as a person, but how I'm respected down to like looks. And it's not to say that I know I wasn't like broken down, but I also knew I wasn't no ugly person, like, girl. But you would like let butch queens and I even have to be real enough to say, even let the toxic femme queens tell you, like, that's what they would have you to believe. And it was really just a humbling experience, but you really have to learn how to navigate in and out of it, because at the end of the day, this ballroom reality isn't the real tea. It's not like actual reality. It's not the real world. And the moment you start letting the things that can happen in ballroom and all the different like negative things try to get into your mind, your actual reality will become skewed.
Yes.
And you would hate for like you to step out of ballroom world, get into the real world, and take those negative ideologies that you have there and let them affect you in the real world. Because ballroom will literally have you thinking like you are the brickiest brick on the block and you are the clockiest of the clockiest. And then you will go out into the real world thinking that, and then you will gag that that's not how the real world perceives you at all. And they might actually perceive you the complete opposite direction. So,
Really?
yeah, I definitely gagged a few times. I thought that I was the clockiest girl, and then I had gotten to situations where trade ain't no, and I was like, oh. Well, ballroom said I can't even raw realness, girl, and y'all telling me I'm real on the block. That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
What about you, Gigi?
I think that what was the question again?
Like, so pretty much like your experience, like, so you know, when you first found ballroom, you had this one reaction,
Yes.
and you had this reality,
Of course.
experiencing the community. How was that transition or culture shock like for you, or that experience
Well,
for you?
for me, I think I was, and this goes for a lot of things in my life. I think I was, I think I bit off more than I could chew, even just with my move to New York. So I moved to New York with like $70 in my pocket, and just assuming that like things would just work out. And so when I found ballroom, you know, it felt like this like
light at the end of what I thought was the end of the tunnel.
Right.
But it really ended up being just the beginning of the tunnel.
Right.
I came to Ballroom and I was
Ain't that again? Ain't that again?
it's like, oh, like, wow.
That is real.
But when I arrived as, and so, you know, being from the South, you know, now we have this updated language of like non-binary and all these things.
Yeah.
So like when I came into Ballroom, I key all the time. I was giving like Kevin Ambiance. Like I had a bald head. I was, you know, a beat face, bald head, and like, I would wear a dress. Like, you know, that was me. So when I came in, you know, obviously at that particular time, which was only 5 years ago, there was still like this pressure to choose. And so, you know, I think I came into the decision myself, but I've seen other girls that felt like they had to choose. And I felt as though for some reason, I never really felt good enough, like regardless of what I did. And so, and almost still kind of feel that way. And so when I started transitioning, I think I just feel like my mind accelerated like another like 20 years. And so everything that exists in this world, I experienced just in Ballroom. So I experienced like anti-blackness, and I'm not even the darkest girl, you know, that I know. I experienced just the pressure to align myself with like Eurocentricity and all of these different things. And I was adopted, you know, when our parents in Ballroom, I was adopted by a woman who is an icon in the scene. You know what? Fuck it. I was adopted by Rose. Rose Chanel.
Yes.
She was Miss Margiela. Yeah, love Rose.
She's a fab girl, right?
Love for Rose.
Yes.
But you know, my experience being adopted by her and with my sister, who is like more like fair skin, very fair skin.
Yeah.
I think I was so used to feeling like, and this is at no fault to either of those girls or ladies, but I just felt kind of like the ugly duckling.
Right.
Because I was like the black girl.
Right.
And it reminded me, or it was told to me when we got further along. At the time, Rose was really, really close with Vanessa Mizrahi. Now she's like Mother Beautiful Zion with Pony Zion.
Yes.
And it kind of reminded me of Vanessa and Carrie's relationship, about like how Vanessa was the fair skin and Carrie was the dark skin.
Right.
And again, I'm not as dark as Carrie, you know, even, but you know, I think even watching the clips, I was able to see the juxtaposition of how they would treat Vanessa versus how they would treat Carrie.
Oh.
And
the clips
outside of that, the clips never lied. Like outside of that, I can just imagine the real world experience.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition of the real world experience,
especially at that time.
And especially at that time. And so like I felt like I was experiencing that, even like just when we would go places, like how people would just live for her.
Yeah.
And I would be like, damn, like, am I not pretty? Like, am I not this? Am I not that? And again, this is not at fault to her.
No,
or,
but it does make you
question. This is like a
question.
microcosm of the world that we live in. So I always felt like I was trying harder. Like I would put on more makeup. I would do this, do that, to feel as though I was not necessarily competing, but competing for like some sort of attention. And outside of that, I feel like that has colored the way I compete, or even approach competing in Ballroom, in the sense of like, I know that if these girls are doing this, I have to do this and some.
Yeah.
And it's tiresome.
Yeah.
It's really tiresome. Because at some points in my transition and in my femininity, I just want to exist.
Right.
You know, I don't want to feel like there's always an effort or there's a thought put in. You know, the reason why a lot of us take 2 and 3 hours just to step out the door is because we think about these things all the time, especially the black girls.
Yeah.
So it is a pressure. And then when we experience it from men, it adds another layer of scrutiny, because it's like, you have no clue what it is that I go through. So I think, in conjunction to the other ladies on the couch, I think that what saved me is sort of like this inner knowing that I'm not the only one that went through this, but that shouldn't be a source of solace, because we shouldn't have to go through it.
But it cuts the loneliness down a little bit.
But it cuts the loneliness down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Noelle? What's your experience?
I am from Houston, Texas.
Shout out to your father, Dion. He's great.
Work Dion.
Work Dion.
Big,
Bitch.
great person. No shade. We need to live with that.
My birth mom has been in the community for years, so I like grew up knowing like about balls, about like houses and like stuff like that. Like in Houston,
ordained. Like
in Texas, Ballroom is more centered in Dallas, but like Houston has like things from time to time.
Shout out to the Gulf Coast.
Right. I walked my first ball in October 2020. It was a mainstream ball, but I joined the Kiki House of Mulan that year too. That was my first house like ever. And like coming to the floor was like a chance for me to just like express like what I needed to say. Like I really didn't come to like feel fab or like to feel like to get validation. I just wanted to like express like everything that I was learning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
But
I wish
like
I had that.
moving here has really like changed like my perspective.
Oh, down, because you came off that plane, ran up. What ball that was? I think it was the Hayden football.
Yeah,
And for realness, and just stormed. And I was like, this is not the same Noelle.
football?
I didn't walk
She
painful.
she pumped through, almost knocked the girl's shoulder. Right? Like she
That was your first ball
with all her body out.
right.
With all her body out, Miss Thing. She had one OTA too, but she definitely had pumped through.
She pumped through
with the white.
He was wearing all white.
I was like,
Oh my God.
That's right,
oh
Bass.
my God.
Bust through, Bass.
It was
No
a different
shot.
energy. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
New York activates that.
I like last year like was a lot for me. And like I like basically lost like a lot of my confidence, a lot of just a lot of like self-belief,
Essence,
you know. So I really had to like check myself and say like you need to get it together. So I decided to move. And when I got here I was like you need to be ready. So yeah. But for me, like dealing with like men in the scene and like interacting with men in the scene, it's not been a pleasant experience. You know, like I have great like chosen brothers, and I have like a great father, you know, that molds me and that pours into me.
Who's that?
But Dion.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But my first father was Albert Revlon.
Oh, okay.
He's a Butch Queen Vogue film from the 90s.
Oh
And
yes.
he,
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my first father. And he like taught me like about using my hands, about using my fingertips, my
That's
arms.
why your
like,
hands are kind.
Yeah.
Oh, she said, yeah, she know. Okay, back.
But yeah, I Albert, Dalamu, Dion,
We're
Boots,
Dolly.
and just like Malachi, like so many other people like pour into me, you know, but I've learned like since being here, that I have to be selective with the people I hang around, you know, because
Right.
people will, because of the life or the spotlight that you get on the floor, people will want to like a piece of that. They want to be around that, you know,
Right,
but
right.
you can't give your energy and your light to everybody.
Right.
You know, it should be sacred. You know,
Right.
and I'm learning that. And I'm
Right.
still learning that.
Yeah. She you kind of
but-
woke my Facebook up just a teeny bit. I was like, this is right on
No, 'cause,
time.
like, I am someone I don't like conflict.
Yeah,
I
same.
don't like
Confrontations. I ain't
I
got
don't
it.
like being confrontational.
Yeah.
But I'm learning
I
that
welcome it.
Give peace, love over here.
I'm learning that you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with sometimes not being liked, not
Yes.
stepping on people's toes, you know. And I'm learning that it's okay to speak my mind. It's okay to like say what the fuck I need to say, you know. So yeah.
I mean, these are skills. Well, they wasn't really. You're building these skills that was never really there before, and it's these experiences
Right.
with these people that's like, okay, bitch,
Right.
this is that little tough skin that you're gonna have to like
Right.
carry on. Which
I think
it's
that
interesting though.
I think that with Noelle, I think that with Noelle, because we like, you know, we are all sisters in some way.
Yeah.
But me and this one in particular, I think we do this. We do this too. But I think that with her, I think we are more similar than her and I.
Right.
And so I think in the years that Noelle was living in the South, and she would see kind of like from a bird's eye view some of the things that was happening in New York City. I don't think that she really understood like some of the
backstory,
some of what we were experiencing until she got here. And I remember like, you know, when I would be, and still am, very vocal about some of the things that I believe in. You know, I am someone, and I think that we are all leaders sitting here. I think that I'm someone that believes, and I've told you this verbatim, that if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. And you have to know, you have to be okay with standing for something, because people are going to look at you and think that, you know, okay, I know what Noelle stands for, or I know what Nekia stands for, I know what Iman stands for. And if they are questioning that, then they will go to someone else who is vocal about what it is that they stand for. And sometimes the person that they go to could not be the best leader. And for someone who is as intelligent and educated and eclectic and wise as herself, I think that like where we have often come into conflict is like I'm telling her like, say what you gotta say, and don't hide what it is, even if it's to me. You know what I'm saying? Like and I'm like, that is the only way that you can move through conflict. And to me, I don't even call it conflict a lot of times. And I think that'd be the thing that people miss, is that it's not always conflict. It's just vocalizing
what
an
you
opinion.
stand for.
I feel like too, like from my own experience, because I'm not necessarily confrontational, but if you bring conflict to me, I will bring resolution.
Yes, and you have definitely been in a conflict, like some highlight, you know,
no
conflict.
shade.
You don't have to get into that, but I definitely was just like, this is kind of crazy. Like,
I remember we had key once because I was like, whatever you see online that I'm saying, just know that it has been filtered already. It has been filtered already. So if you believe what I said online was not filtered, you would hate to hear the voice note that I sent to this one or this one, or the phone call that happened. I remember we was keying. I was like, bitch, you want me to get over, because the person who I had the conflict with or whatever, they were like, you just need to get over it. Da, da, da. I was like, bitch, you want me to get over transphobia?
Right.
yeah,
Like
that's
girl,
really,
what? Like, you want me to, and it then, all that to say, I've learned specifically, like coming from the South and everything like that, like me and Boots had the conversation, like, I will never be from New York. I will never, these people grew up together, they went to school together, they had all these different experiences together, they have lost friends and loved ones close to them that I did not even know before I got here, right? So to a certain degree, they will try to debunk you or try to like put you a little bit lower as to your opinion about things, or if they feel like you should have a voice or say, or like just because you're not from here. And then when you're a woman, because this it's not even femme queen no more, it's men. And thank you.
And they only do
because I can't even say that, because I know some butch queens that they do it too, but I know specifically when you're a woman in this world in general, they will try to take your voice away as a woman, as someone who is more feminine presenting, period. They will try to take your voice away. And then when you are a black woman, they will definitely try to take your voice away. And then when you are a black trans woman in the scene, it's given like they just want you.
Suffocated.
And it's crazy how people want a real mother, but all they really want is trophy mothers at the same time. Like, you want a bitch who's on the floor and who's doing all this stuff, but you don't want her to have a voice. You just want her to sit there and be pretty. You just want her to come out and dip. And go home and not say anything. But if somebody makes an offense to me that is directly transphobia, that I can point out, like, this is transphobic, you want me to not say anything. I'm not going to do that.
And that's and I think that that's kind of the disconnect from like this generation, like from previous ones. Honestly, people don't really consider like what femme queens go through. You know, we come to the floor and then we go home and that's it. They don't consider like what happens off the floor, you know? So requiring us to get on the floor and rep the house and win these trophies and win these balls, but not showing the aftercare or the consideration or the support off the floor, that's not going to cut it. Like, that's not going to allow us to grow. That's not going to allow us to get anywhere, you know?
Oh, of course I know, because I've seen so many, like, how can I really say this? Because I feel like, because I have my gay mother is Anya, or
I love Anya.
And when our friendship started to grow, she was like my first femme queen that was really close, that I was able to start picking at, like, okay, girl, you from the 90s, I need to know what happened, like, you know. And she gave me, just listening to her story and how she got where she got, and even her contributions and how that's been snuffed over the years and things like that, like, it definitely built this level of respect where I was just like, no, this is not, like, this is a real life, spiritual commitment. This is a thing, like, you know, this is a real thing. And so it kind of, it does bother me when I see these things be displayed, when I see the girls don't go up for the femme queens as much anymore, or the disrespect, because it's like, y'all are stepping in and ruining on something that inspired me. Like, it
and they'll turn around and complain when the femme queens don't come outside.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's like, damn, we come outside, y'all don't live. We don't come outside, y'all complain. And then y'all still say it's too many. Like, I had a conversation on Big O, and they was literally saying on Big O, they were trying to sit and convince me, shout out to Soraya, and shout out to Kamaya. I think Kamaya was on it. But they was really trying to sit there and convince us that, like, Ballroom is still, like, 100% centered around femme queens. It's too much about femme queens, and it's always about femme queens. I was like, what balls are y'all going to, and what balls are y'all watching? What balls are y'all watching?
Now I want to open this conversation up too, because you recently walked and got charged because you wasn't femme queen enough.
Oh, I was a drag queen, apparently.
Oh.
Let's make sure we get that right. And I'm real enough to say it. Shout out to Clint Lombin for that one, because I was a drag queen in Philly. That went crazy.
I gagged. I gagged
crazy to me.
I think I gagged the most that it happened so late into your existence in the scene. It's like, okay, you by now should already know Nekia's presence. So for that to happen, I'm like,
but you also have to pay attention when you watch that. Like, I did not know, and that's something that I have to make sure, because I never really spoke on it. I gave my little on PR Facebook statement, but I never really into it. I got my on Kelly's thing, but I never got into it. You really got to pay attention to, like, commentators, other judges who be hearing shit and don't say shit.
Yeah,
because they don't
enablers.
And because they also don't care.
Because they also don't care. Or because they share those same ideologies.
Right.
Which we already know one of them does.
Right.
If I would have known that that's what the chop was for, I promise to God that ball would have went a completely different way. Those tens would have went completely different.
I will say that I was present at the ball, and I will say, of the tens that I did see for the Femme Queen performance category, you did have one of the cleanest tens of the night.
Did she? She votes like old school femme queen.
I was very impressed with your tens. I was, I'm no longer a Saint Laurent, but I was still in the back chanting. As who gives a fuck? But I will say that there were things that I questioned in terms of, like, I start to realize that this is where my own conditioning comes into play, and these are things that, like, I used to feel and I see, or used to think about. And forgive me, like, let me back into what I'm about to say. The choices that you make, and the choices that a lot of the newer girls make, even I would say, like, Omi, in terms of how they present themselves. I used to be very very experimental with my femininity. And I realized that Ballroom has kind of put me in, like, a little, like, mental, like, a prison. Like, in the terms of, like, oh, let me do this, and do what is safe.
Right.
So I remember when Nekia came in, and I'm going to be very honest, she came into the ball, and my eyes went from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. And what I saw at the bottom of her feet were Timberlands. And I was like, she's going to change her shoes. Like, I just knew that she was going to change her shoes because, to me, Femme Queen, Femme Queen performance, what I've been taught and what I've been conditioned to believe is that Femme Queen performance, you should not be without a heel. And so when she came out, and she was she first? Were you first?
I was second.
You were second? Okay.
Yeah, I was second.
And the first person was not very.
She got shot boots.
She was not very memorable. But I'm like, when I saw when I heard the chop, I was like, the Timbs. In my mind, I was like, the Timbs.
So what was crazy?
Not that it was for her because she's not a femme queen,
right?
But I think that there are several things happening here. It's the fact that she is wearing Timbs, and it is already the controversy that, or the existing tension that is between her and the commentator.
Yes.
Then there is people who may not know her, maybe one person or two people, but of a panel of like 10, there's probably only 2 people who don't know her. If you can even say that you don't know her.
Right.
And so again, like in my mind, I was like, it's just the presentation. But I'm like, it's not. But then I had to step back, and I was like, but just because she's wearing Timbs doesn't mean she's not a femme queen. And I realized how even in my thinking as just a spectator, I'm like, oh, it's because you weren't presenting this way. And I'm like, bitch, this is the same thing a bitch would tell you that you would have pushed back on, right? And I think that I really had to come to terms with how I have been beaten down with some of Ballroom's conditioning. So what I will say, just before, to wrap my thought up, is that I applaud girls like you who can still challenge the status quo. And I'm not saying that I don't. I just think that I have succumbed to a lot of the things that used to hurt me when I was being very vocal and experimental. And I've chosen a safe route in a lot of ways because I realized just how intense it could be to always be standing in that line of fire.
It gives you fatigue.
It's
right.
Bitch, my wig the lace be lifting, the wig, it's hot.
It gets tiring. The crazy part about it, right? I paid it because I thought it was attempts as well. And me and my house father had already had somewhat gotten into it before because he felt like I shouldn't have did the Timbs. Now, for those who don't know, I'm from the islands. So I'm used to a bashment. I know what goes on. I know how that looks. I know like the whole thing. And then on top of that, because I'm someone who draws inspiration from the 90s, I will look at a category and literally think, okay, how can I do a 90s version of this? Or how can I bring like old school, early 2000s authenticity to this category? So when you're saying bring it like the dance hall queen, the first thing I thought about was the movie, or I thought about Baby Mother the movie. And I'm thinking about like Lady Star and Spice when she was young and the bashments. And you'll even see on like one of the pictures that I posted, it was like 2 girls who were in a Tim boot because like at a bashment, you're outside, you're on concrete, you're in dirt. In heels. You're not really in heels. The only person who will wear heels at a bashment is either like the girl who threw the party or a bitch who came in the heels and she's finna throw those bitches off to like drop down and get her eagle on. So at that point, like it made sense to me personally. It made sense to me for anybody who did their research because it just gave like, girl, she in her swoop. Like it. So thinking that, right, because a male was like, well, I don't see it for this look. And then I get chopped. I go to the back defeated because, mind you, that was out of a lot of times I get my 10s, I don't necessarily feel like confident in what I did, but that was one of those nights where I was like, damn, bitch, I was in my shit, bitch. That was kind of spooky, like. And I went back defeated and I was over it. And then once people are coming to me and they're like, you didn't hear why you was chopped. You don't know why you was chopped. You didn't hear why you was chopped. And mind you, nobody from my house even went up there and asked, which was like a whole shift to the left. And so now finding out, oh, it's a 2 chop rule, and one of those chops is because he said I was a drag, and then it's heard. Like you can hear it in the video, you can hear it. That was just like, I don't know. And it's one of those things, my dad, shout out to Jazzy, he explained it to me, like when you're a catalyst for change and when you represent change and represent a movement and stuff like that, you're gonna deal with this shit. You're gonna have to like, but much like you say, it gets tiring. Like it gets tiring to like, here all the way up until you walk in film queen performance. Oh, you're not a film queen. You're not a film queen. Then you win film queen performance, and then turn around and you'll get your boy pictures posted on Facebook, and they'll say you're GNC. And then they still want you to represent film queen and want you to come out for film queen performance. Then you come out and now you address. Like, it's all very, very, very draining. And I'm hoping that, like, one day all of this that I'm going through, maybe when I'm 50, 60, maybe I'm gone, like, girls won't have to go through that.
Right.
They won't have to go through that. And it sucks having to, like, make a decision when you're looking at as an authentic person, right? It sucks having to look at a category and be like, okay, so do I want to be true to myself? Or do I want to just, like, float underneath the radar? And I had somebody tell me in my own house, they gave, like, you should never come out voguing unless you have on braids. So once you tell me that, and mind you, there was a time before I won Film Queen Performance for the 1,000 where bitches read me for only coming out in braids. It gave, girl, you need to put on a wig, or you need to sew it, you need to do this. Then I win, and now they're like, that's your signature. And when I decided to switch it up, then it gave, well, we only want you to vogue in braids.
Yeah.
These kind of things, they don't understand that this is only 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on how long the ball is. But I got a whole nother life that I live when I leave here. I got niggas that I see. I got bookings that I go to. I have all these kind of things. So just because you want me to make this kind of decision, that's something like my hair for a ball, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I want to do for the rest of my
for the weeks after that.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So I do have a question for all of y'all. I want to know, like, so how is important forming, like, I'm gonna say no. How has forming healthy relationships with femme queens, like, healed you guys, changed some perspectives, softened your approach? Like, how has it, like, impacted y'all in a certain way? Because again, y'all have a very cool, healthy relationship that's displayed.
We try.
I mean,
We try.
I mean, like, no, I'm not saying
no,
it's perfect. Like, this
We don't
gonna
always
be
get it right, but we
Right.
try. And
But
as
that's-
long as we're trying, as long as we're trying to, like, create like a good space for us.
right. I mean, look, me and my daughter, we done argued and we cat like I think it's supposed to be. You're gonna butt heads, right? It's not perfect, but it's still nice to see y'all display this, you know, publicly, and then you have your own personal relationship with the icon, one of the iconic femme queens of like no all time, no shade.
have
Kareem is
a lot of personal relationships with a lot of icons in the scene.
oh, see,
a lot.
Yeah.
Same.
and you develop those, yeah, correct me, right? But y'all develop those, you know, just from being authentic. So how has that shaped your opinions and experiences?
Growing up, I am the oldest of 6. So I really had to, like, just share and just really, like, consider, like, others. Coming into Ballroom, at first, like, it was a lot of Bush Queens, you know, because, like, in Texas, like, when I first came out, there weren't, like, a lot of, like, femme queens walking. Like, you know, there were the girls, but they weren't, like, in
walking.
the scene, you know?
Right.
But, like, connecting, like, with my sister Iman, connecting with Nekia, connecting with, like, so many other girls, connecting with Omi, it, like, taught me the value, like, of friendship, like, of sisterhood. You know, and I say this all the time, I'm a very emotional person. I love people. I love being around people. And, like, my sisters, like, my friends are important to me, but my sisters, like, the women in my life, I cherish them. Like, I cherish the fuck out of them. Like, they're important to me, you know? It's important for me to have women in my life who share the same experiences and who come from the life. You get what I mean?
Down.
You know, and I don't get it right all the time, you know, but I am thankful that I have friends and people who hold me accountable and who make space for me to grow.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I'm very thankful for you. We've been friends for a while, but I, like, was going through something like that, like, really, like, just changed me. And Iman like called me one day And she was like, "You okay, sister?" And I was like, "Why are you asking me that?" And our friendship grew from there. And I think our first time meeting was West Ball weekend.
That was the first time meeting in person.
We met, and that was
Wait a
our first
minute.
time meeting in
Hold on.
person.
Wait a minute.
love that.
Wait. Because if you're going to talk about the West Ball, also, she admitted to me just a couple of weeks ago. No, probably just a couple of days ago that she was scared of me when she first saw me at the West
I
Ball.
did not mean
Yes,
it.
because because I was
That's
wearing
not
heels.
what I
I was wearing heels, and I was taller than her, y'all. I'm 6'2".
That's
you
not
know,
what I mean.
and she was like, "You was towering." She was like, "I was scared. I was so intimidated."
Oh, she read, girl. She
and
read.
then she said, "I was scared of the Nekia too."
It's a hype.
So
mama.
I met
You know,
her.
girls-
We're from the, so
You better
like,
defend.
us being from the South, like taller girls are depicted differently. So
Like,
like
natural.
when I wasn't like really conscious like of my height like until I transitioned. So like meeting like girls who are similar or like taller than me, it's like okay, like
Look
this
at her.
is-
She didn't want to say.
That's
she
not-
didn't want to say taller than you.
We taller girl.
They know what I mean. They know what I mean.
Big Staley over here.
But
know what I mean.
there's a lot of this pre-programming.
But the back
like that.
It's smaller, darling.
But that's very true. I always say like my first time, like I had dealt with girls from like the standpoint of dating them when I was a butch queen. But there was this, I had went to the Marquette, it was Pride, and I was standing by the bar, and these two tall femme queens walked
And I think
past
you told
me.
this story.
Yes, I told you this story. They were taller than me, flat-footed. And they both had on heels, and they were both done. Like when I say done, I'm talking head to toe done. And until then, like honestly, after that, I would only see girls who were like more athletic if they were tall and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I feel like that one interaction in itself changed me to know like if I'm going to be a tall girl, you could be a tall cunt girl.
Right.
And Deshaun had said something to me at Ledger where he was like, he had seen tall girls like coming to New York for the longest, but after like for the last 3-4 years, like me and Legend, all these other tall girls coming out,
Yeah,
he never
right,
seen tall
right.
one so
That's
many
right.
of them, and then they all are on this thing of like we wearing our heels, we wearing
Yeah.
short-ass dresses, we getting our hair done. Like he wasn't
challenging
used to that.
those.
But like it do be conditioning. We be conditioning and don't even realize it.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Right.
but I mean, like,
No,
she-
right,
like
and I think that like coming to Ballroom or just coming like into the community period, it's important to like unlearn all of this shit that you were taught. It's
Prior.
important to establish new ideas, new like perspectives on life because you're not going to be able to exist in certain spaces with the same like rhetoric that you were taught or that you like have, you know?
Can I
Yeah,
pause
go
it real
ahead.
quick because what you said was really true because I feel like a lot of the issues with people in the community is that they cannot exist
Exactly.
in different spaces. And that
Exactly.
becomes very challenging
Exactly.
for their own identity, their own misery, and etc.
Exactly.
Because they're not developing themselves out in and outside of this.
And then they will try to tear down a me, a Noelle, or Iman when they're able to see us float through different spaces
Exactly.
with ease.
Yeah.
Exactly.
With
Yeah.
ease. And because in their eyes, we should not be existing in these spaces. We should not be able to go to a Loire show and
Right,
Claremont
right,
Twins
right,
or go
right.
across seas
Right,
and like
right.
do all this. Like they feel like it should be them when in all actuality you're not authentic to yourself. You're not being your truest version of yourself. So who would want to like put a spotlight on fake shit?
Let me just share my final thoughts, and then okay, I'm sorry. First, yes, I just want to say thank you guys, you lovely ladies, for being here and supporting this conversation. Honestly, again, I think the alignment of it all and what I've just been trying to do is just like really highlight the authenticity of people that exist in this goddamn space. Because no shade,
Yeah.
they will try and they have been trying to take that and stuff that in so many different like avenues just exist in here. And so, and I'm just speaking just from a Bush Queen perspective. So, but like again, I have a soft spot for femme queens. I consider myself no shade femme queen hybrid. Like, but I just appreciate like y'all survival stories. No shade. Like it creates so much character. It's so much depth in it. Like I said, like it's such a spiritual thing that I think people don't really consider. But I just really have to understand, like, I honor each and every one of y'all works and how y'all present yourselves and push through, because it's so important. It's so important. Congratulations going to Paris, doing your thing out there.
It was London.
Congratulations for Noelle Archives and how that exploded, and like how important that work is. No shade, like stuff like that really needs to be highlighted and needs to be valued, and like continuously valued, because as we see all the time, the nastiest people tend to be uplifted and hold them in these pedestals and put in these positions of power. But when these corporations are done cashing out, it's going to be like individual authenticity that cares about the culture is going to keep pushing it forward. So yes, congratulations to going to Panama and capturing that, the beginnings of that space, because speaking to people to Brazil and all these other different countries, just from doing what I'm doing, like they understand the importance of this space when a lot of us, especially in New York, lost the value of why we even here to begin with.
Well, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a forgetfulness that I think does come from New York. But I will say New York has definitely given everyone a possibility model. And that's something that I do want to stress before we close out, is that we have to thank New York City, the Mecca of ballroom, for giving everyone a possibility model, because this model has been carried internationally. I did go to Panama. I just a couple of months before that, we did the second ball in Jamaica ever. And I was, I was able to witness that as well. And that model is really just for one thing: self-expression, and how it leads to the euphoria of liberation. That's all ballroom really is about. So yes, there needs to be a reverence for femme queens. There should be a reverence for femme queens. But at the end of the day, we all come here, regardless of your identity, for liberation. So New York City is that. There is a little bit of things that is lost in translation. But I think one thing that even going internationally and seeing these kids, they need it. They need it. So it has to thrive here, because we set the standard, we set the example, we are the model. So whatever we continue to do, just understand that whatever changes here, it's going to change everywhere.
I think what touched me so much about going to London and getting that experience and being able to interact with ballroom out there was I had a realization that London, which isn't like some baby scene, it's not like 2 years young, but it probably isn't 10 or 15. And they have this energy that is very much like New York ballroom was in the start of it. And that we're not giving out no money for real. It's only a few femme queens, but the ones who are there, we're cherishing these female figures and these femme queens. And we're coming to these spaces because we need this community. We need this healing, this love that comes from being in these spaces with each other. And we are still struggling with these things, whether it be our parents don't know that we're gay and queer, or we have no help for like being trans or any of these things. Like there's this raw authenticity that is brought to the floor because these struggles are still happening and these struggles are real. So just because you're in a place of privilege here in the city, and now you're at this point where, like, girl, we don't necessarily have to worry about as much, so we feel like we should be receiving these thousands coming to the ball. There are other places that are at the space that this scene was when it started.
And just happy to be there.
And that made me like shout out to my house, shout out to Georgina. I'm going to Germany and Amsterdam at the end of this summer, so I'm going back to Europe to be able to like to be able to like do more work and teach workshops and talk on panels and stuff like that. But I'm excited because I enjoyed seeing the rawness in these scenes that are new, but one, they have respect for us. These people across seas are looking at us. You could be a kitten in the scene, girl, and you think nobody's looking at you, but somebody over in another country,
and you go over there,
is looking at you.
You go over there, and you
a
be
lot
fab.
of like most of the opportunities and most of the people that like have supported like my work are like sometimes not even from here. And the fact that and this is like I'm learning not to be like, how do I say this? Modest, like about like who I am or about my abilities.
Yes, you want to stand.
When people like pour love or like compliments into me, I'm like, oh, you know me? You get what I mean? And it's a very like
Validating.
affirming experience to know that like people like see my work, people support like what I do, not even just my archives, but
you,
what I walk.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's important to me.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I have people like Genovia, like Dion, like
Shout out to
Dalamu, like
Genovia.
Shout out to
so many
Genovia.
other people who have opened up like the door for me to like do what I need to do in Ballroom.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for coming. I'm gonna have you guys come back again because we're gonna watch some old school clips.
Oh, yeah,
and we're
let's
gonna
do
get pick
it.
into
Let's
that.
break that down.
So we need to break that down for the one time. So we'll be back.
We'll be
so
back.
thank you. Wrap it up.